big question right now.
Oh, damn. Thank you.
Not entirely sure, actually. We should be live now.
Oh, damn.
There we go.
Thank you.
Of course, I still can't see myself, but
Thank you.
we should be live right now. Are we? What's going on? I'm not sure if you guys can see me yet, or if Evans, how you doing, bro? Epic Thulu, how you doing, brother? What the hell is going on? Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. All right, we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to each and every one of you to Barrens Chat. This is episode 2 of the Barrens Chat. We'll see how long I can remember the episode numbers for. I want to apologize right off the bat. I woke up this morning sick. That was fun. So I am a little bit sick. If I do start to sound weird or my voice starts to give away, that's why. Next one is 4, right? Yeah, 5 actually. We'll revisit this at 5. Marco, how you doing, bro? Epic Thulu, how you doing? Evans, how you doing? Nihara, how you doing? Christina, how you doing? Raymer, how you doing? Cyrena, how you doing? Welcome to each and every one of you. I am so happy to be back with you. Of course, we have a pretty full show planned for today because, well, shit's real. Shit is very, very real. Epic Thulu, I don't know what's wrong yet, so we'll see. I have something's definitely swollen under my arm. I don't know if you call those the lymph nodes or some shit. It's clearer in Afrikaans. I don't know what it is in English, but there's like a clear swelling there, like a little ball just sitting there, and my voice feels a little bit like rough. Everything else is fine still. I don't feel anything else yet, so we'll see if something else gets weird after a while. We'll see. I don't know yet, but still, we're here and we're gonna make the best of it. Courtney, okay, so it's either an infection or an allergy. We'll see which one it is. I'll let you know. If I'm dead, you'll know. Shit, you had an infection. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have a lot to discuss, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss. So I think we should jump right into the first topic. And I thought we could probably do a couple of things that don't divide the community and everyone's sort of happy with. So I decided to start with Plunderstorm. Can I get some thoughts from chat? Like, what are your thoughts? Initial thoughts from Plunderstorm. How do you feel about this mode? How do you feel about its implementation? Now that we've had a few days to play it, have you changed your mind specifically? What is your thoughts on Plunderstorm? 8 out of 10. All right. It's fun like it should be. All right. I'm assuming I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the majority of people in this chat probably don't mind it, right? They probably enjoy it. It's probably something that, you know, you're having fun with, okay? But that's not been the case for the overwhelming majority of the audience. Not a big PvP person myself, but it looks interesting and entertaining. So there's a couple of things about this that almost immediately happened as soon as this thing was announced. Now, remember, this had a very peculiar launch. We didn't know anything about this. This was never tested on the PTR. It was never revealed to us. We didn't even know what this patch would be called right up until the moment that it was released. I mean, everyone got the cinematic. A few hours later, the servers went live, and bam, we have this new mode. It is effectively Fortnite in World of Warcraft, although I have to say, after playing more games than I'm proud to admit, and yes, I have been no-lifing that shit whenever I'm not streaming or making videos, I can't stop playing. Now, I have a very specific way of playing. I don't think most people want to play like me. I basically look where everyone else is landing, land on top of everyone else, and just fight it out for like 5 minutes. Die, get back into queue, immediately just rinse and repeat. Most of my deaths, I don't even have 4 abilities. Maybe I have 1, if I'm lucky. Sometimes I get kills, sometimes I get smacked. That's my playstyle. I enjoy it most. But anyways, so I've been having just a whale of a time playing Plunderstorm. But that's not what happened in the overwhelming community. A lot of people felt like they've been duped. They felt like, there's been such a drought of content for a while, and now Blizzard comes out and they announce this piece of content that really has nothing to do with WoW. Even though it is in the WoW engine and it takes place on Azeroth, the fact of the matter is you're not even logged into WoW when when you're playing, right? You get into the loading screen or get into the main screen, and then you have two choices. You can play Dragonfight or you can play this, which I, by the way, think is actually a good thing. That is one of the biggest W's. I think this would have been far worse if it launched like a battleground type thing where you log into WoW and then you go to the battleground. Because fact of the matter is, this feels like a standalone game. It feels like a standalone game. It doesn't actually feel like this was a WoW expansion. And I recognize that it shares loot with World of Warcraft. When you get stuff in World of Warcraft, or when you get stuff in this mode, it will transfer to your actual account. But for all intents and purposes, this could have been launched as a standalone game and no one would have batted an eyelid. In fact, it may actually have been, according to many, more successful. Now, let's talk a little bit about why this is the case, why it feels like such a standalone game sort of thing, and then also why a lot of people are angry about this mode. I'm going to tackle the anger thing first because I think it's the most divisive part of it, and I think it's also the most important part to get out of the way. Firstly, I think Blizzard is sort of a victim of their own success here. I think we can all agree the fact that they didn't announce this at all. They didn't even allow any room for speculation at all. It was literally a flag, and that flag could literally have meant anything, right? They didn't feed into the flag. It was a flag for the longest period of time. The problem with that is, while very successful and created a lot of hype, it also means when you're WoW players, and this is something that the WoW community does, I think, more than most other communities that I see, they came up with ideas. They came up with speculations. They came up with theories as to what they thought this was going to be. And then suddenly, when it turned out that this wasn't what they thought, of course, there's going to be anger. Because I think a lot of people had some really cool ideas for what a pirate flag in World of Warcraft could mean. And so it just felt really shit, right? Had friends wanting to do Mythic Plus, but there was no one around to play it. So here's, Michael, I get all of that, right? And I fully accept the fact that this is disruptive to the WoW audience at the moment, because I know that there's a ton of people playing this at the moment, because no matter what time of the day I log in to try and get a game for this, it takes less than 5 minutes to fill up an entire 60-person lobby. And that is usually the sign, specifically in Battle Royales, that there are a lot of people playing this. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that came back to WoW after seeing it to try and give it a go. So it's no, only because you get into the starting area pretty quickly. But if you look at the top right-hand corner, there's like out of 60 players there. That can sometimes take, let's not say 5 minutes, let's say two minutes maybe for it to hit 60 out of 60 players. So there is a little bit of grace period there where you're not just immediately getting into the games, right? But even then, it is super quick considering the fact that this is 60 people that have to show up for this. Now, the anger, I fully understand this, okay? I fully accept the fact that there are people that's angry. But I would like to ask you to think beyond the initial enjoyment of your game, okay? And I get it. You're playing World of Warcraft. Maybe you were hoping for a Mythic Plus, or maybe you were hoping for a new PvP battleground, or maybe you were even hoping for a new island where you could be a pirate and roleplay as a pirate. But think about the technology of this, and I think that's the most important part of this entire thing. There are technologies in this Plunderstorm that will transfer so well into the main game of World of Warcraft. And it's actually genius how Blizzard approached it. It is absolutely genius. Because if those technologies, if those mechanics failed, say, for example, the race mechanic failed, or the, almost obscene kind of class bold style that you have in this game, where you go in there, you have no build, and you have to find abilities. If that failed in something like a new battleground that Blizzard introduced, or in a new raid that Blizzard introduced, people would be livid. People would lose their shit over the fact that their brand new shiny feature is broken. And they had to wait this long to get it. But it's happening outside in a completely separate game mode. And this is where we get to the next reason why people are so angry, and that is that it is a limited time event. A lot of people are not happy about this being a limited time event, and I kind of accept that. But what if I were to tell you that this isn't a limited time event? How many of you would believe me if I said this is absolutely 100% not a limited time event? Nice. Well, new land would have been great. Michael, how do you mean it was hinted at? Who hinted at it? So, put yourself in Blizzard's shoes for a second here. Zenith, you're on the money, effectively. Put yourself in Blizzard's shoes. You are trying something brand new for the first time. You've never done anything like this. If you come out of the gate and you say, this is our new feature, it's an evergreen feature, this is it. If it sucks, you're in a sort of bad bind here. If it sucks, you have to spend, how many resources there is to try and fix the thing that sucks. No one wants to play it, so you now have teams on this, pulling teams probably from the main game to try and fix this disaster that you've created, because you've said that this is a new evergreen feature and players are now excited about this new evergreen feature. If you make it a limited time event and it sucks, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because, well, it's going away anyways. So you don't eat the fucking dick on a sucky feature that you have to fix. If it sucks, 6 weeks from now, it's done. It's over. We can move on. And everyone can forget that one time that Blizzard really shut the bed with some new feature no one was asking for. But if it's successful, oh boy. Well, now the sky's the limit. I can do pretty much whatever I want with this feature because it's successful. Now, firstly, I want to be clear to all of the players that thought Blizzard had wasted resources. How many of you in chat felt like this was a waste of resources that Blizzard could have spent better on things in WoW itself? How many of you thought that's the reason you're upset, is the fact that Blizzard took time to develop this thing when they could have made other things in the game? Like really cool things. So a new Mythic Plus dungeon, or a new battleground, or a new zone. How many of you thought that this was a complete waste of resources? Michael, the lore books you're talking about, if I follow Blizzard's logic from expansion to expansion, you will get that land, but not in this expansion. Whenever Blizzard does lore books specifically towards the latter part of the expansion, those lore books almost always point to something in a future expansion. Blizzard sort of releases it to gauge what everyone sort of feels about it. To get away from the formula and try new things? No, because they used an old zone? Michael, but I mean, there's still resources that went into this. Are you suggesting that because they used an old zone, no resources went into this? I mean, this is an entirely new feature built from the ground up. That new zone doesn't exist in the game. Or the old zone doesn't really exist in the game. Not with the mobs and the way the mobs operate, the loot tables and all the rest of it. There is a significant amount of resources that went into this that many people I've seen online at least have suggested that Blizzard could have spent far better in the actual game, right? Now, this may break a lot of your brains, but this feature wasn't built by the WoW team. And I think I have enough to go off of to sort of preach that as the truth. I don't believe the WoW team had anything to do with this. In fact, I think the next patch for World of Warcraft has already been worked on. This was a nice way to give the Blizzard team the opportunity to prepare for what will ultimately be the intro patch for the next expansion, to make that as big as humanly possible, and this gives them the time for it. Now, Blizzard has a department called, I can't remember their exact name, but it's basically the experimental department. The reason I can't remember the exact name is it changed. But it used to be headed by a guy called Adam Adlam. He was the co-founder of Activision, or of Blizzard, not Activision Blizzard. This was, he and Mike Morhaime founded the company together, and he eventually he left Blizzard for a while, for about 2 years, and then he came back to Blizzard. This was still under Mike Morheime's leadership, and then he joined this department as the lead of the experimental games department. His department was basically focused on any and everything that Blizzard wasn't entirely certain was ever going to be a game, but could maybe have some interesting technology that could eventually be incorporated into some of their other games, or even a mobile game that may actually turn out to be a very successful one. So I have it on good authority that Diablo Immortal wasn't originally supposed to be a game, but it came together so well, according to Blizzard at least, that they decided, let's make this into a mobile game. But some of the tech that was developed there would ultimately make its way into Diablo 4. So this really is like a super experimental department that basically just wastes a bunch of money. Pretty much, most of the time. This feature has all the hallmarks of that team working on it. The fact that this isn't in the main game is one of the biggest clues for me. Because this suggests to me that team did not have access to the live game of World of Warcraft in order to develop this inside World of Warcraft, and instead they made their own game and just simply attached it to the World of Warcraft home screen. Because it is, at this point, literally a second game. So I don't think any resources were wasted. In fact, I think we're going to get our dicks blown off by Blizzard with the announcement of the next patch. Because the Blizzard developers, specifically Team 2, has now had 2 patches worth of time to get ready for whatever they're revealing on this next patch, be that 11.0 or even 10.2.7, although I'm not entirely sure how that will play out, but I think the next announcement is going to be huge. So in other words, this cost Blizzard resources, but it didn't cost WoW resources. Yeah. Well, it didn't even really cost Blizzard resources, because that team is just pretty much always blasting resources everywhere, because the experimental teams, they just do shit, and they see if it works, they see if it doesn't work. Now, why do I think this is a super cool thing, and why am I personally super excited for Plunderstorm? It is something completely new. It is something that we've never seen from Blizzard, really. And, I mean, even if you look at Blizzard's mobile games, which is sort of a new thing for Blizzard, it's most of the time playing it incredibly safe, doing things that they already understand, they know how to do it. This is something out of the blue. This is something Blizzard have never even tried. They have a shooter, sure, and you could say, well, battle royales are technically shooters, but their shooter doesn't operate anything like this. This is a phenomenal piece of content, even if you don't like it, because it means that this is the new Blizzard. A Blizzard that isn't afraid to experiment, that isn't afraid to go big and see, will this work, won't this work? And then another piece of evidence that I have for you that I completely forgot about, but I should have mentioned, why I don't believe that this was actually made by the WoW team. If you guys remember, about 2 years ago, Blizzard had an acquisition of a company. I can't remember their name now, but they made a game which was a battle royale with magic. Their game failed completely. Like, the game did not work at all. No one really played it, but it was very hyped for a while. People were the Spellbreak team. That's the one. Yes. People were super hyped for the game, right? And people thought this could actually be really cool, but it completely bombed. Then Blizzard suddenly just acquired the whole team. And I remember at the time making a video saying, I don't understand why Blizzard would want to acquire this team, because their last game bombed. Like, why would you buy a studio who have this really shitty game on their hands? But now it makes sense, right? Now it makes sense. Blizzard looked at that game and they said, hey, if we add Blizzard resources to this, if we add Blizzard polish to this, this will blow people's dicks off. And I think it has achieved that. Now, what happens with the limited time event? It is not going to stay limited time. Now, this is where we get into complete predictions. I have no evidence for this, but I'm fairly certain about this. In about 2-3 weeks from now, Blizzard will announce an extension to this initial period. It will probably not be a permanent extension. It will be an extension, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks. Blizzard will use the old adage of due to popular demand and because people really wanted a little bit more time, we're going to increase the time here. Then the game will almost certainly go offline, as the team now can take all of the feedback that they've gotten from the live test that they ran on this, and they can make changes to the map. They can rebalance the map, because right now the map isn't always perfectly balanced. Maybe they can add a few new abilities, remove some of the abilities that may or may not be broken, whatever the case may be. And then I think there's going to be some kind of huge announcement with this going to the Game Pass, becoming a standalone game that is completely free on the Game Pass, or maybe even free everywhere. And the Game Pass, like in League of Legends, simply unlocks all of the cosmetics. So you can play it for free. There's a cash shop with all sorts of cosmetics that you can buy. But if you have the Game Pass and you play it through the Game Pass, everything is just enabled. It's just there. You can use it as much as you want. That is what I can see happen with this. The feature is far too successful for them to just it's that proletariat team. That's the team. Thank you, Marco. Yes. Iva, how you doing? Collectors are annoyed as they have to do this. Michael, when we get into those conversations, I fundamentally agree with you. And we spoke about this yesterday during the live stream on Twitch as well. One of the key failures that so often plague new features from Blizzard is when Blizzard designs the rewards for some of those features, the rewards changes the target audience of the feature. The most egregious example I have of this is Torghast. Everything about Torghast, if I wrote down all of the features of Torghast and I asked you, who is this aimed at? You would be high if you told me hardcore raiders and PvPers. No one would answer that. People would look at that and they would go, well, casual players. You know, people who don't really raid, don't really PvP. This seems like a feature for them. But then you have the rewards attached to it, and the rewards suddenly say, actually, no, this is a feature that hardcore raiders and PvPers absolutely must do. And it's a shit show. This is the same thing here. The game mode itself is really fun, really cool. Someone who doesn't collect, I couldn't give two shits about it. But the fact that there are cosmetics attached to this, and the cosmetics actually translate to the actual game, now means that even people that hate doing this, and they just want the cosmetics, are forced to do it. Well, because they want the cosmetics. And that is the one flaw that I would argue Blizzard made during this entire thing, is the fact that they attach the cosmetics. But even then, I would say it still, to me, comes out as a win. Like, I still believe this is a win across the board. Because I can already see how this team can implement things like Mario Kart in World of Warcraft, how this team can implement even sort of like a Smite-esque kind of MOBA in World of Warcraft. There's like a crazy amount of stuff that this team can do, especially now with well, them clearly showing that they're not afraid to go out there and try something crazy every once in a while. Imagine if every single expansion we got stuff like this, you know, where one of their patches is one of these wild and wacky sort of weird things. Blizzard made a huge mistake in getting rid of GMs. They're having a lot of issues in that department. How do you mean, Jim? Dragon Race PvP for honor, but with WoW classes, that could also work, right? Get to the part where this connects somehow to player housing. No, Zenith, the team that made this, if I'm correct, then it was the proletariat team that worked on this feature and wasn't actually the WoW team. The housing thing will not come from them. Because in order to get housing right, it will have to come from the WoW team, because housing will have to be developed in the live game. So you can't have an outside team fucking around with it, right? But it at least shows that Blizzard is willing to take risks, and they're finally willing to do work in their own IP, which is something that I've been begging Blizzard to do this. They have this phenomenal IP. Say what you will about World of Warcraft for the last 4 years. Yeah, we can agree Battle for Azeroth was dog shit. We can agree that Shadowlands was dog shit. We can agree that Dragonflight was sort of, okay, it was all right. You know, it wasn't the best expansion ever, but it wasn't as bad as the others. It was a pretty neutral expansion overall. But the one thing that everyone needs to be able to agree on is that the World of Warcraft, the Warcraft IP, is one of the greatest IPs out there, right? It is a phenomenal IP. And for some reason, Blizzard just never make anything in it. Like, never. They don't touch it. They have World of Warcraft and nothing else ever happens in it. This being the first time that Blizzard goes, hey, we have this really cool IP, may as well do some stuff with it. It's a good first show. It's a good first show, in my opinion, at least. Bought gold illegally, I know, bad, and his account got permabanned on his first offense. Many first offenders usually receive a 2-week or a 1-month ban for first time. Jim, I mean, I can't really answer that because I know another person, and this was actually 5 years ago, so before most of the GMs were fired, who also got caught buying gold and also got a permaban on their account. So I think it usually just depends on the GM that you get. So if you get a more lenient GM, maybe they'll, you know, give you a suspension of 6 months or some shit. If you get a super uptight GM, they're going to give you a permaban. You'll fringe and not have bought gold. That's pretty much as simple as it is. Star Wars dog shit. BFA End was pretty good. Yeah, but then you have the whole Nazov fiasco, and BFA End was not that good. Blood Vixen, how you doing? Akko, good to see you again. I remember back in the day, my WoW friends and I would always rip on games like Fortnite. I think some of the sour sentiment for Battle Royale carried over. The thing is, one of the things I love most about this feature is one of the things most of the WoW players hate most about this feature. And that is, no one asked for this. And I'm going, yeah, no one asked for this and they still fucking did it. How cool is that? Because I think a lot of people in World of Warcraft are really struggling with understanding this mode. A lot of people in World of Warcraft do not seem to understand how you should be approaching the game. How many of you go into Plunderstorm with the objective to win? Like, you want to win. So you're already thinking about all the things you're going to be doing, all the places you're going to be landing at, so that you get that big fat W at the end. This is a mode where the journey is far more important than the destination, specifically if you do solo play. Battle Royale solo play is one of the hardest game forms to win at, unless you are snuts, right? If you're snuts, you'd be able to kick some ass, right? Even in solo play. But if you're just an average player or even a above average player, specifically in solo queue, you're probably not going to win. But that shouldn't be what it's about. I told you guys how I play it currently. I land in the most populated area and I fight instantly. Even when people want to run away from me, I fight them. If I have no abilities, I'll hit you with my sword. I don't give a shit. I fight constantly because it's fun. It's enjoyable. I don't care that I'm not going to win the game. I don't care that I get killed in 3 or 4 minutes of the game actually starting, because fundamentally, I already had my fun. I had like a good 8 or 9 PvP battles. I won some. I had to run away from some. And when I die, I go, shit, that was fun. And I get back into the next game. WoW players have lost the ability in a lot of ways to play the game that way. If you look at most of the activities in World of Warcraft, most people don't do those activities for the journey. Most people do those activities for the rewards, right? What am I getting from this? I just want the purple pixels. I don't give a shit about anything else. I think this is a very nice and very, let's say, easy way of maybe starting to retrain the WoW mind away from things like rewards first towards things like fun first. Just go in and have fun. Lose the idea of, oh, I'm going to win this. You're probably not going to win this. So don't even think about the winning. In DQ, it's a whole different story. If I really wanted to win, I would phone up one of my friends and be like, bro, let's start DQing. I want to win some games. Solo queue, I'm just there to have fun. And I like that. I like the fact that there's so many WoW players out there that's complaining currently that it's too hard and Blizzard should nerf it because they can't even last past the first 5 minutes. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. Did you have fun in the 5 minutes that you landed in? If you did, yeah, that's pretty much what games are for. They're meant to be fun. Get into the next one and maybe survive a little bit longer. You know, maybe survive for 10 minutes. Or die quicker. Doesn't matter. As long as you had fun. And I hope that a lot of people open their minds towards the idea that games should be fun. It shouldn't matter about the rewards. It shouldn't matter about the victory. It should matter about the fun. That's what you should be thinking about first and foremost. Just fuck shit up. I love it. Zenith, that's how I play it. Like, you can watch the streams where we were playing it. I literally land and I fight everyone. I don't give a shit. Even if I see someone has more abilities than I do, I just fight. Like, immediately, I'll beat you with my arm, bitch. Like, I don't give a crap. And I did, actually. Last night, I landed and I sort of fucked up my landing because I missed the elite. I was aiming for the elite, but for some reason I missed the elite. And so I just killed a bunch of random small mobs and none of them dropped any abilities. And then another guy landed on an elite, got an ability immediately, and I was out there with just my R button. And this guy, you know, he had that windstorm thing that stuns you. I managed to dodge his one windstorm, kill him, get his windstorm, and as I was healing, another guy arrived, also with fire. Oh, he had firestorm, and so I don't know. I didn't plan this, but it happened. As he got into his firestorm, I stunned him with my wind thingy, and so I was just standing there looking at him while he's in his thunderstorm and his firestorm, going, "Ah, bitch, what are you gonna do now?" And then I killed him too. So now I had firestorm and the stun, and then I got killed immediately after that by a guy showing up with 4 abilities. But it was fun. It was a good time. I think more people should approach it that way. Jamie, how you doing? Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you. But yeah, I want to hear from you after we've had this whole discussion now. Have your mind changed a little bit about this new feature, or are you still hell-bent on the fact that Blizzard can suck my dick? I don't want this in my game. How do you guys feel? Ortangu, just to be clear on the whole don't survive past the first few minutes, that is true in most battle royales. So there's ways of doing it. If you are struggling to stay alive and you would like to stay alive a little bit longer, my suggestion would be avoid any and all populated areas. So that means any camps, any sort of the circle of elements, do not go anywhere near that. That's usually where I land. And if I find you there, we're fighting. I don't give a fuck whether or not you have abilities. We are fighting. Stay away from all the populated areas. Land somewhere way off to the side. And then slowly make your way in. Keep up with the storm. So if you see the storm coming in, stay till the last second and then move into the storm, and try to stay on the outskirts of the game. Most people are going to flood into the center because, well, they want to fight. If you want to stay alive as long as possible, make sure that you avoid the center or any of these central areas. Just kill your normal mobs and have your fun on your own, right? That's really the only advice I have for you. If it's really important to you that you need to stay alive a little bit longer. But I would say that's a really terrible way of playing as well, because now you're wasting so much time before you will inevitably die because maybe you're not good enough to be alive. And it's maybe better to just learn how to be alive, right? So land in the hardest places and just fight, right? And if you die, go again, try to learn. And if there's one piece of advice I can give for all of you, stop mashing your buttons. Think. Just because you now have 4 buttons doesn't mean that all of them have to be on cooldown all the time. Think. What do you have? You have 2 utility abilities and 2 damaging abilities. If you're wasting damaging abilities by not hitting those abilities, when you could have hit them if you made sure to put the person into a lock of some kind, into some kind of CC, that is an ability that's now on a pretty long cooldown with you not being able to do anything, right? So think about the abilities that you have. Think about the utility of your abilities. So try to have at least 1 gap close ability or 1 escape ability. So if you don't want to go towards players, try to find something that will allow you to get away from players. Have some kind of stun so that you can actually lock someone up. And then have either your Firestorm or even your element, the element call thing. Have your damaging abilities, but only use those if you either know for a fact you're going to be hitting or if you have them stunned. Because that's the best way of using those abilities, is if you have them stunned. It's better to die learning how to live than to live being afraid to die. True. I've played maybe 10 rounds so far, enjoyed it, but I'm more excited about the potential Blizzard now has with adding different content like this. You and me both, bro. That is literally the thing that excites me most about this feature, is just the potential of it, what we can see from Blizzard moving forward. The new border for Paris, smell blood of Evans. What the hell are you on about? Josh, you see, the way you're playing the game is how me and my friends used to play PUBG before we realized that that's a really bad way of playing PUBG. So in PUBG, we sort of quickly realized we get absolutely ass blasted if we land in the most populated areas. So what we would do is we would land on the outskirts, loot ourselves nice and fat, and then slowly make our way into the center. And then after a 30-minute game, you get ass blasted anyways because the other people are just better geared or they're better than you. And then what ends up happening is because you've wasted so much time in the game only to get your ass kicked, it feels shit, right? It just doesn't feel fun. Whereas, dude, nothing feels better than escaping the early game with like 4 or 5 kills and all of your abilities on, right? You have everything because you've killed so many people. Just feels good. Plunderstorm event must be an evergreen thing in the actual game, put only on Plunder Isle. Martin, this is where you and I disagree. I think it should be an evergreen feature, but not for WoW. I think it's going to be its own game. I think it's going to come out for consoles, and it's going to go onto the Game Pass as a free-to-play game. I think this is their beta test, effectively. It's a beta test without calling it a beta test. But no, I don't think it should be in WoW. The problem is that it breaks so many of WoW's rules that it will almost never work as a WoW feature. They, as a WoW feature, there's something very specific about WoW. When you log into WoW, there's something that you expect WoW to be. And that is, if I'm playing a Warlock, I need to always feel like a Warlock. This is a sort of sacred pact that Blizzard have always tried to stick to as much as possible. This breaks all of those rules. If you were to put this into the game, you would now have a feature that fundamentally breaks the sacred pact that Blizzard have had with their game pretty much since the start. I don't know if you guys remember how long it took for Blizzard to finally accept that PvP and PvE should be balanced differently. Like, most of you maybe don't even remember this, but I come from a time in World of Warcraft where if Blizzard made changes in PvP, it fucked you in PvE and vice versa. Because Blizzard didn't have multiple layers of changes. If they buffed the damage of Incinerate in PvE, it was buffed in PvP as well, no matter what you did, right? It took years for Blizzard to finally admit, okay, this is actually a shitty way of doing it, so we'll just have 2 layers, one for PvP, one for PvE. I don't see them breaking that even further. Hussein, I can see in time Blizzard adding more abilities and items. I think this is a really nice way of Blizzard doing it, where they launch with a very limited scope of abilities and utilities to see how does that play out. And like I said, I imagine this is going to be 6 months, maybe. I think this is going to be a 6-week, and then it's going to be announced that they're extending it for maybe another 3 weeks, and then it's going to go offline. Then the team is going to take all of that data, revisit it, change the map, rebalance the map, add a bunch of new items, maybe remove some of the items, and then relaunch it. But I can absolutely see something like a, you know, where you have the barrel or the smoke bomb or something like that. Well, what if one of the things that you could pick up was a resurrection chest? If you do get killed, you can instantly resurrect. Of course, that is a cool thing. It's not necessarily a problem, but then you are also giving up gap close. You're giving up the ability to escape from certain people. So yeah, I can see that being a feature, that being an item, but it will have to take up the slot of your barrel. You can't have your barrel and that, right? How it's initially all fair. I would like to see Blizzard add more games in their game if it fits the meta. Example, the functional Hearthstone table from the event. Yeah, the Hearthstone thing I do think needs to come. Holy, I know we're going to be talking about the Asmongold drama in a second. So how many of you know about this Asmongold thing? Because I think I've covered everything I wanted to say about Plunderstorm. I couldn't say as much in my original video because we literally just reacted to the announcement. And of course, me playing in EU meant that I didn't get into the game until a day later. So I didn't know anything. Right, obviously. Jason, how you doing, bro? No, on Fridays, it's for the next hour and a half or so. We're here, right? Barrens Chat Podcast. It's on the main channel exclusively. On to Shroud version of Warcraft. Aspen Drama, what is the new? Did Max already respond? I don't know if Max responded yet. I do know that there's rumors that Max will respond, right? Now, I see there's a few people in chat here that have no idea what is going on. So Asmongold released a video where he spoke about the things that World of Warcraft needs to fix for him to come back to WoW. So in other words, in his mind, in his opinion, the things that's wrong with World of Warcraft. As you can imagine, in World of Warcraft, whenever you criticize World of Warcraft in any way, shape, or form, players are completely rational and normal about it, and they embrace the opportunity to debate. No, obviously not. It was an absolute disaster. Pretty much immediately, people started flaming Asmongold. People started making all manner of claims against Asmongold. The WoW Twitter community did what the WoW Twitter community does best, and that is be absolutely brain dead about everything. Because, well, I'm pretty sure, I'm almost convinced at this point that the WoW Twitter community just, that you have to lose your brain as soon as you join it. That you can't be smart and join it. It doesn't work. But anyway, so people were super, super upset. To boil down Asmongold's ideas for the game, or his opinion on how to fix the game, the first thing that Asmongold wanted to target was bloat in World of Warcraft, and he basically used Plunderstorm as a good example of what Blizzard could do, right? So in other words, remove the amount of abilities and spells that exist in World of Warcraft, make it far fewer. I don't know if necessarily if he would argue. Now, we can argue specifics if you guys want. I'm just giving you the broad strokes here. He didn't actually give a number, so he didn't say that there should only be 7 abilities in World of Warcraft per class. He just said that a lot of the abilities should be removed or should be completely pruned so that it's a lot simpler to play World of Warcraft. He then spoke about add-ons being removed from World of Warcraft in its entirety. Yes, that includes literally all add-ons. So basically, add-ons should no longer be allowed in World of Warcraft. Then he spoke about parsing and how parsing should be completely and utterly removed from the game. And finally, he spoke about boss design and how the boss design of World of Warcraft is just not good, right? Now, we reacted to his original video. I obviously agree with a lot of things Asmon said, as I disagree with a lot of things Asmon said, which is usually normal, right? We won't agree on everything. I agree with Asmongold that bloat in World of Warcraft is a pretty big problem, especially when you start thinking from the perspective of new players. So players who've never played World of Warcraft, maybe is seeing WoW for the very first time. There's just too much. There is simply too much. A new player is expected to know all 37 of their spells in order to figure out which of the 37 spells are they going to need on a fairly regular basis. Even spells that they will hardly ever use, they'll still need to know what those spells do, right? Because in order to know that you don't need a spell, you need to know what it does. Otherwise, you just won't know. So if you're a new player and you're seeing this entire book full of spells in front of you, it's overwhelming. Right? It is overwhelming because I've spoken to new players that said, I just didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm getting all of these abilities and I don't know what these abilities are. I don't know what these abilities do. And even when I read the tooltip, it doesn't automatically make sense to me. Because remember, unless you've already been in a dungeon or already been in a raid, a lot of the abilities won't make a hell of a lot of sense to you, right? Because you don't exactly understand the use case scenario for that ability. So I agree with Asmon that maybe you can do something about the bloat, but I also think that you have to be super careful because it can very easily go from we're just pruning some of the abilities in WoW to oversimplifying the classes to the point where the existing player base isn't having fun at all. Because let's be honest, part of the fun of WoW is mastering the class. And I feel like one of the dangers of pruning too many abilities is that you lose that. There is no mastering. You have so few things that actually goes on that there is no way to master. Well, there's nothing to master, fundamentally. So I don't know what exactly the right amount of skills versus not skills is. We can talk about it. Someone said that Asmon used 10 as an example. Evans now says 20. I don't know what that amount is, right? Is it 5? Whatever the amount is, what I would argue, if we are going to try and stem bloat, it needs to be a number to where getting into a new class is fairly simple. It's fairly straightforward. It's fairly intuitive. Everything makes somewhat sense. But then mastering that class, that's where it becomes difficult. Whatever that number is, that's the number that I would aim for. Now, chat, I'm going to ask all of you, when we start talking about the removal of add-ons, how do you guys feel? Is anyone else having Zenith's problem? He says YouTube keeps stopping and starting the stream. Is that something that all of you are experiencing currently, or is it just Zenith? All right, so what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that they don't care about the add-ons being removed. Would that go for things like damage meter as well as parsing? Like, would you guys be okay with damage meter being removed from the game as well as parsing being removed from the game? Or would you draw the line at that? So remove all of the add-ons, but don't take my damage meter, don't take my parsing. How do you guys feel about that? In-game meters? No. If I'm talking about removing things like damage meters, there's no remove the damage meters only for Blizzard to make their own damage meter. I'm asking, how do you feel about all of that being removed? In other words, Blizzard revokes the API access to things like damage meters, so there can be no damage meter. There is no possibility of parsing. So basically, overnight, RIO dies. Overnight, Warcraft logs dies because there's no way for them to access that data. The data is dead, basically, and there's no way to get into it. How do you feel? See, so regardless of how you guys feel, and I like asking this because I want to see where the community lands on this. The one thing I can say about the add-on debate, and the last 2 days we've had some pretty big screaming matches over on the stream about the add-on debate. The one thing I will say, imagine World of Warcraft has 10 different groups of players. Out of the 10 different groups of players, all 10 groups, except for one, so 9 out of the 10 groups agree that add-ons should be removed, or at least some add-ons should be removed. The problem is that none of the 9 groups can agree on which add-ons should stay. So as soon as you ask the 9 groups, do you think add-ons should be removed? Or at least some? They'll say yes. All right, all of them? No. Which ones do you want to keep? And then you'll start getting a list. And before you know it, all of the add-ons need to stay because someone will be upset about, someone somewhere is going to be upset about losing their favorite add-on, whatever that may be. So I'm not entirely in favor of removing any add-ons in World of Warcraft, but I do think that there are some add-ons that are worse than others. So, for example, I think we can all agree DBM and Warcraft logs weak auras need to go. Those are 2 add-ons that should absolutely not exist in the game, because they're add-ons that basically remove a lot of the difficulty of the game, and it turns the game, or the developers, it makes the developers have to enter into this sort of arms race of they need to make the game more difficult to keep up with the add-ons, and then the add-ons get more sophisticated and so on and so forth. Before you know it, we end up with a lot of difficult fights that can't be done without add-ons because, well, we're in this arms race. So I think everyone sort of largely agrees that those 2 add-ons need to go. So let's talk about things like a damage meter. There were quite a few of you that say that you will not play WoW if you lose your damage meter or if you lose parsing. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you is to understand that this is a debate. And this is a debate where we're trying to determine the future of our game in such a way that everyone is to some extent somewhat happy with the future of our game. And in that spirit, there is going to have to be compromise. There will have to be compromise. There is a large enough group of players that are sick and tired of damage meter and parsing being held over them when all they want to do is play their video game. And they want it removed so that they can play their game without elitists slamming them when they're not doing the absolute top DPS of a fight. Okay? So they want it removed. Then there you have your hardcore elitist fans that say, no, I need my damage meter, I need my logs, otherwise I can't kill the bosses. And that is just how it is. So I think I found the best solution to all of these problems. Okay? And this is, what is a compromise? A compromise is where you do something where neither side is happy, but both sides get what they need, fundamentally, right? You can't remove damage meters because you'll piss off one group. You can't keep it because you're pissing off another group. Well, what if you made damage meters an opt-in feature? So in other words, in the TOS of Blizzard, so in the TOS, in the rules that all of us sign up for, Blizzard makes it very clear that you are not allowed to use parsing or damage meters to attack another player or to tell another player anything. You're not allowed to link your damage meters or your parses to another player unless that player have opted in to the damage meter play. What does this mean? Well, it means that when you form a group for a Mythic Plus, for example, there's a little checkbox in the group finder where you go, damage meters will be used for this run. This means that everyone that joins that run, everyone that clicks join this group, has to know that damage meters will be used in this run. So they opt into it, therefore they play it. Those people who do not opt into it, if you then link damage meters, you get a suspension, right? You get suspended because you were attacking someone that didn't fucking want to be attacked with this. They didn't care about their damage. They were just there to have fun, and you were turning the game pretty much against them through your tools. Could you guys agree that that is a decent compromise, at least? Clabby, it doesn't matter, because again, what will happen is in time, one of the two groups will get larger than the other. Okay? So, and this is purely by popular demand. Either what will happen is there will be so few people willing to opt into this that even the people that don't want this and they want to use their damage meters will start to join groups where they can't link their damage meters because they can't find groups that is willing to use damage meters, right? Or parsing. Or the other side happens. There's so few people willing to play without passes and damage meters that most people have to opt into it anyways. The reason this is important to me, the reason I think this is an important feature, I fully understand why parsing exists in World of Warcraft. I used to be a raider myself. I used to be a mythic raider. I understand why you need parsing. I understand why you need damage meters. The problem is, in World of Warcraft, you have a small group within the community, maybe 5, maybe 10%. It could maybe be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but I would say 5 to 10% of the player base that don't just use the damage meters and the parsing as a tool in order to get better or to make sure that they're killing a boss. They use that in the most toxic way available. And the reason they use it in the most toxic way available is because the system leaves a lot of open space for toxicity to breed. And if you have a lot of open space for toxicity to breed, you're going to get a lot of players that use it in the most toxic way. And I'm talking about going into an LFR and watching a druid that is clearly geared for Mythic, smashing the damage meters, and then wanting to kick people that are clearly just freshly dinged. That is a very toxic way of using damage meters, but there's players doing that, right? And that immediately ruins the experience for this brandly new dinged player that don't know what the hell they're doing. They were in the LFR because they were trying to learn, and instead they got kicked from the game because they weren't doing enough damage, right? And that is a disgusting feeling for a new player that just wants to play the game. So you have to find a way to allow everyone to play the game on their terms, right? And without being harassed with bullshit that they maybe don't even know exists. If you're a brand new player, you don't even know there's such a thing as DPS meters, and suddenly people are screaming at you about your DPS meters. Hello gameplay when you need to know if something is dragging you down. Lily, I fundamentally agree with you. And as I said, I fully get why you need damage meters. I fully get why you need parsing. The problem is just there is a small group of people in the community that use that as a tool to be incredibly toxic. And you are losing players. If a new player, think through the mind of a new player who just joins their first ever mythic dungeon. They just think their first ever character. They're super excited. They're finally ready for a mythic dungeon. They get into the mythic dungeon and they're kicked from the mythic dungeon because their DPS wasn't high enough. They didn't even know there was such a thing as DPS. But suddenly there's a link in the chat showing them at the bottom of the log, kicked. I'm like, what the hell just happened? What? What did I do wrong? Of course, they don't know because no one's telling them. No one's using it to teach them. Everyone's just attacking them for it. So I feel like, at least in this way, and believe me, I hate it too. I wish that you didn't need to do this. But the problem is, if you want new players to feel like they can join the game and feel like they have the opportunity to learn how to play the game, this is probably the best way to do it, or maybe even the only way to do it. Zenith, the overwhelming majority of laws that you live in your country is designed for the 1% that breaks them. It's not designed for the 99% of people, but since there is that 1% of people that's fucking stupid, now you need the law that says, hey, what the fuck? And since this is completely opt-in from everyone, there's no force being applied to anyone. I don't necessarily mind it. I don't think it's just damage meter problem. It's a culture problem. Don't think that removing the add-on would solve this. Lily, you are absolutely 100% correct. And this is one of my biggest takeaways from Asmongold's complaints, but also from listening to how the community is responding to Asmongold's complaints. WoW's biggest problem, and I just quickly want to say, Ravy G, 55 months, part of the DJ Nation, appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ryan with the $2, really appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Could that be applied to harassment or bullying? I guess so. You could have it under harassment or bullying, right? So in that clause where you have no harassment and bullying, you just have, you cannot use your damage logs to bully a player that did not consent to that. Zenith, the problem with that is, it would be perfect if we lived in a world where Blizzard would employ enough GMs to actually punish the 1% that is using it toxically, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world where Blizzard will absolutely not hire enough GMs to actually make sure that that 1% gets fucked, right? And even if Blizzard wanted to punish the 1%, right now the TOS does not restrict players from using the damage logs to kick people from groups, right? There's nothing in the TOS that says that you're not allowed to kick a brand new player from a group if their DPS is too low. Nothing. So fundamentally, if you're a brand new player, you don't know what you're doing, people will just kick you. Because and this is where we talk about, just removing add-ons will not fix shit. The problem in World of Warcraft is far deeper because it's a development problem. The development of World of Warcraft, the game is developed in such a way that it requires a lot of these things. So, for example, why do we need DPS meters in World of Warcraft? What's the reason for the existence of DPS meters in World of Warcraft? Kimmy, how you doing? Jay Ward, not, I mean, I'm sure some people use it to come first, but why? Why do you need that? Why are there so many people that say you need it? And by the way, as a former raider, I absolutely agree. You do need damage meters. Min-max culture? Not so much min-max culture. It's, again, the design. In World of Warcraft, a lot of bosses are designed with split-second max DPS requirements in order to get the bosses down. So when you look at World of Warcraft and you look at enrage timers, for example, enrage timers, especially early on in tiers, will oftentimes require everyone to be max DPS all the time, or else the boss enrages and you don't get the kill. You'll have mobs that spawn into a fight and they need to die within 10 seconds, because if they don't die, they get a cast off and everyone dies. So this, while it's a super fun mechanic, is also a mechanic that now breeds this reliance on being able to see who is doing the damage and who isn't doing the damage when we die. This is a problem because, well, you can't get rid of the damage meters if that still exists in the game. If you want to remove damage meters, so let's say we live in a world where Blizzard does want to remove DPS meters, you're going to have to fundamentally change the way you design the game. So that you instead punish people for not doing the mechanics of the fight correctly, rather than punishing people for not having enough DPS on the boss. So as long as someone is alive and they're pressing their buttons at least somewhat reasonably, the boss will still die, right? As long as everyone is doing the mechanics correctly. But that's very often not what we see in WoW bosses. That's very often not what we see on WoW raids. It's more often a case of you have to do all of your mechanics, but you also need to do super DPS, because otherwise we enrage, otherwise we die, whatever the case may be. So you can't just remove damage meters. If you just remove damage meters, it's going to create a whole void of hardcore players that suddenly can't raid because they don't know who the fuck isn't doing the damage in their fights. Holly, so you never see a raid made for new players. Why would you? Because that is actually the second part of World of Warcraft's failure in terms of damage, or in terms of development. Why would I start a raid group for a bunch of new players? Because there are a lot of people, apparently? No, there actually isn't a lot of new players in World of Warcraft, and part of the reason is no one does anything to include them in the process. If you're a new player in World of Warcraft, you are left to your own devices. You either figure it out or you fuck off. Most new players choose to fuck off. Because, well, I can't get a group. When I do get a group, I get kicked. Why would I play? Right? Why would I play a game that I physically can't play? If Blizzard doesn't design incentives around new players and playing with new players, no one's going to play with new players. No one's going to start a raid group for a bunch of new players if they're literally just going to be wasting their time for the exact same resources. However, if Blizzard came in and they said, hey, if you do a dungeon with a brand new player, you get extra rewards. If you do a raid with a bunch of new players, you get extra rewards for every new player that's in the raid. Suddenly, a lot of people start running raids for new players, teaching them how to play, because, hey, I'm getting extra shit, right? There's a reason why I want to do this. A game, all games, but specifically MMOs, require new people. You cannot, under any circumstances, have a game where new players are not included, because your old players will quit. That's just a fact. No matter how fun your game is, life gets in the way. You get a new job and suddenly you don't have as much time to play. And even though you loved WoW, you just don't have time to play it anymore, right? Or you get married and suddenly your wife doesn't like you playing, so you stop playing. Or your husband doesn't like you playing, so you stop playing for them because you love them more than you love the game. All of this shit will take people away from the game. The way you fight that is by ensuring new people consistently come into the game so that they can pick up the slack, and you have this constant churn of old players leaving, but as long as there's more new players joining as old players leaving, you're in the raid, right? You're good. You can just keep going. The problem in WoW, especially lately, is that there isn't that constant churn of new players coming in. There's a lot of old players quitting the game, almost consistently, but you don't see the same amount of new players stepping into the game. And the reason for that is there's nothing for new players to do in World of Warcraft. There's no way for them to get an actual game out of World of Warcraft. They won't get invited to groups. There is no real new player experience for World of Warcraft. So if you want to play WoW, it's because you forced yourself into it. Right? You forced yourself. You really wanted to play with your friends, and your friends really wanted you to play with them. So you just sort of made do with what was there. Jason, that's not a good argument. That is just simply not a good argument, because we all choose to waste our time on different things. But if I'm wasting my time playing a video game, I want to have fun doing it. Technically speaking, we're all wasting our time on all things all the time. When you're watching a YouTube video, you're wasting your time. You could be working during that period of time, right? When you're out having dinner with your wife, you are effectively wasting time. You could be working during the 3 hours that it takes you to go to dinner. Why do you go to dinner? Because it's fun. You love hanging out with your wife, or maybe your mistress. I don't know who the fuck you're hanging out with, but you like doing it, and therefore you do it. The idea of wasting time is basically what we call entertainment. But in order for me to feel okay with wasting my time being entertained, is I have to be entertained. Otherwise, what's the point? Jaywood, what do you mean? Holy, okay, so a new player isn't going to complain about damage meters because they don't even know what the fuck it is. Your argument makes no sense. So you're suggesting I can't know what a new player may or may not find irritating based on my own experiences within the game. Even though I'm not a new player, I know what my experiences are. I know what I see around me happen all the time, right? And I go, man, if this was a new player, they would quit almost immediately. You see, I have this thing. It's called a brain.
I'm a rich bitch now.
And I can use it sometimes. Not all the time, sure, but I can use it sometimes. Like sometimes something magical happens. I look at stuff. I don't know how it happens. It's pretty automatic. Maybe scientists should study me because I sometimes seem to be the only one that can do this. I see things happen and my brain makes these connections. It goes, oh shit, that happened and this happened and this happened. How would that apply to this scenario? And then it sort of goes and I go, oh shit, that scenario would happen. Holy shit. Okay, that would be really bad if this was the scenario in which it happened. I don't know how it happens. I know I'm special because, you know, apparently it only happens to me, but it does happen from time to time. I just end up calling it thinking because it sort of feels like that's what I'm doing. But when I do that and I look at things happening in the game, it sort of very quickly starts to make sense to me that how shit, this could really impact new players. It's wild, I know, but it does happen. Ryan, thanks for the $2, man. Really appreciate you. And yes, I was being super sarcastic there. Should a sprout system for FF14 be implemented? Yes, I do think so. Clubby, thanks for the $5, man. Really appreciate you. Is it time for WoW 2? Is the game and its player base too old for these fundamental changes? No. Because of WoW 2, the problem with WoW 2 is that the problem with WoW 2 is that you'll still have the exact same players from WoW 1 being the predominant original players of WoW 2. Like, they're not going to stop playing WoW 2, right? Or they're going to continue playing WoW 2. WoW 2 is also a massive risk. Firstly, you're almost guaranteed going to lose some players that don't want the WoW 2. They were happy with WoW 1. So that's a guarantee. You're making WoW 2 entirely on the promise that you might get new players in WoW 2. But that's a promise. That's a guess. You're hoping, right, that you get new players. You have no guarantees that new players will stop playing WoW 2. You could literally spend millions of dollars making WoW 2, and it's still just the same players that came from WoW 1, started playing WoW 2, no one new wanted to play WoW 2 because the problems that exist in WoW 1 will fundamentally still exist in WoW 2 no matter what you do, because it's the same developers making it, right? And if there is a problem in WoW 1 and you need a WoW 2 to fix it, then you could just fix it in WoW 1. You don't need a WoW 2. I personally, I used to be very much in favor of WoW 2, but that's changed entirely for me because I think, if anything, Blizzard have showcased that they can make massive changes to WoW and the player base can adapt to those changes. So you don't need to reset the whole system with the WoW 2 in order to fix some of the problems in WoW. And I do think if you want to be honest about World of Warcraft, and I realize a lot of people don't want to be honest about the game, but you should be honest enough to agree that World of Warcraft today is in a far better spot than what it was in 2 years ago. I hate when I see these comments from people saying the game is absolute dog shit. The game has been shit for the last 6 years. I hate this game. I wish it dies. I'm like, bro, the game in Shadowlands was absolute dog shit. And it was terrible. BFA was terrible. But Dragonflight isn't terrible. At worst, Dragonflight is okay. It's okay. It's not mind-blowing. It's not... no one's going to orgasm with Dragonflight. But it is solid. It's a solid game. It's a solid expansion. It does what it needs to do. There's hiccups here and there, but there will always be hiccups. I don't necessarily view that as the end of anything. And I think it's in a good spot to actually progress from and to move forward into. 2 years ago, though, Friedrich, that is very true. Frozen Solid, that is also a good enough reason. You know, you lost a bunch of friends, and WoW without friends can feel shitty, right? What Dragonflight taught me is that Blizzard is clearly not done. They haven't given up. Dragonflight could so easily have been a rinse and repeat of Shadowlands. It could so easily have just been another disaster. But Dragonflight has at least shown me that Blizzard isn't done trying. And that is good, because they will eventually nail it. We know they will, right? You shouldn't even guess about that. Are there hiccups? Sure. But let's hope that they fix those hiccups. Let's hope that those hiccups are just a hiccup on their journey to finally fixing the game. And yeah, I agree with you, Alton. Dragonflight's story wasn't phenomenal. I wouldn't say it was the shittiest story, but it wasn't great. I would put Dragonflight's story pretty much on par with that of Shadowlands and even to some extent BFA towards the latter half of it. But I want to be clear here. When I say the story, I am talking about the story, the narrative. I'm not talking about the lore. I think the one thing that Blizzard have always done pretty well is lore. The lore is always really good, but lore can only take you that far. Narrative, the actual telling of the lore, that's where the ball has been dropped the last 3 expansions. But I'm hopeful that they can fix that, especially with Chris Metzen being back. I'm sure they can remedy that and make it better. What's interesting to me, and I have a theory, and maybe most of you disagree, maybe some of you agree, but I have a theory that the reason BFA, not even BFA, let's just start from Shadowlands. My theory is the reason Shadowlands and Dragonflight's main story, because here's the thing. I will fight anyone when they say that the side stories of Dragonflight was bad. Because you are absolutely trolling if you believe that. The side stories of Dragonflight was actually really good. The Blue Dragon storyline, even the Bronze Dragon storyline, except for Chromie hugging Nosdormu's leg, which was awkward as fuck. But even that storyline was really, really, really good. Like, almost all of the side stories were phenomenal for Dragonflight. The main story was the thing that fell apart. Like, just really felt like, I don't know, it felt weird. It felt like a lot of it was missing, and I use that advisedly because I do think a lot of things was missing. I think what was missing from the Dragonflight story, main storyline, was changes. I think when Chris Mason came in and finally decided I am going to be the next dude that takes World of Warcraft forward, he wanted changes made to Denuzer's plan. The same way that Denuzer made changes to Alex Afrigiabi's plan. So remember, beginning of Shadowlands, Alex Afrigiabi leaves Blizzard. Suddenly Denuzer goes, I don't like the direction of the story from Alex, so I'm going to change it. This leads to a lot of problems. Remember, all of your story was already made long ago. The team that does all of the dungeon design, all of the raid design, all of the quest design, they're already now working on the next expansion. So you can't pull them back and say, hey, we're changing the whole story, make a new quest line. They're working on the next expansion. They can't come back. So now what you do, if you want to make changes mid-expansion, you rush. Right? So here's my thinking. And the basic example I have for this is the Viranoth storyline. I always use this as an example because I think it's the best example. Viranoth storyline doesn't make any sense because it was rushed. Because it was never meant to be. I think Viranoth was supposed to be a boss in WoW, in this expansion that we fight. But I think Chris Mason saw Viranoth and he said, dude, I have plans for this bitch. She lives. Now you have a problem because Viranoth was so clearly on her way to being a boss. And now you have no quest design team that can make new quests to ensure that you can now play out this fantasy, but you need to get there. So you rush it, you force it. Do we notice it? Sure. But let's hope that this doesn't happen in War Within and we can finally see the Blizzard developers on form with a story that they know where it's going to go because they've already planned 2 expansions ahead or 3 expansions ahead at this point in time. I think it's going to be interesting. Holy, that was just... Chromie hugging Nosdormu's leg is still cringe. And it's a while ago that happened. And I still cringe whenever I think about that scene. You have this super old, really cool dragon. Like, Chromie may look like a child, but she's super old and actually quite powerful. And she's cool. And she runs up to Nosdormu's leg and hugs him like a daughter would her father. And I'm not talking about a grown daughter. I'm not talking about a teenage daughter even. I'm talking about a little toddler. It's like, what? In what universe would anyone do this? Hey, Chromie, even by dragon standards, is no longer a teenager. Chromie, by dragon standards, is a full-blown adult. No adult is going to run up to another adult and hug their leg, except for some weird sex play that I don't want to go into right now. But that's the only place that would happen. It was just the weirdest shit ever. Zenith, no. No. We know that there are other bronze dragons that aren't directly related to Nosdormu. Nosdormu has his own children, so dragons that come directly from his brood. But no, there are many dragons, or bronze dragons specifically, that come from various different broods. Holy, I didn't really skip the drama. The penultimate end of that discussion. So after Asmongold brought up all of the add-ons and the things that he wants to remove, the community lost their minds. And then Max, as far as I know, things may have changed since then, but the last I saw was that Max watched Asmongold's video and Max was planning to make his own video, basically either agreeing with Asmon on a bunch of things or retorting Asmon on a bunch of things. But I have not seen the new video yet. I don't know if the new video has been made yet. So I fundamentally don't know. I don't know what the answer is just yet, right? We'll have to wait and see. I will not pick any side. I will pick the side of whoever the fuck, whoever the fuck does the right thing, right? Whoever says the thing that I agree with most, that's the side that I will pick. I don't care who is right and who is not right in this debate. According to me, I care about who is objectively more correct, because I don't think there is such a thing as a right or wrong. I think there's a thing that one of them will be more correct than the other, but fundamentally, remember what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Asmongold's opinions on things that should be fixed in WoW. We're going to also get Max's opinions on things that he thinks should be fixed in WoW. Opinion being the pejorative word here, right? The most important word. It's an opinion, which means neither will be right. One will just be more right than the other one based on my opinion and based on my own biases and feelings. Better for everyone. Josh, I don't know if you could ever get WoW better for everyone. That's sort of a fundamental flaw of gaming. You can make gaming good for some, but you can't make gaming good for everyone. There's always going to be some people that dislike the direction of WoW. And there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe they can have some good ideas every once in a while. But if you try to please everyone in video games, you end up pleasing no one in video games. All right, so I do have another topic before we get into some lore discussion, and that is WoW engine drama. Now, specifically, the reason I decided to jot this down was about responses to a video I made on my second channel, so not this channel. If you only care about WoW stuff, I would not join that channel because it's very rarely about WoW stuff on that channel. It's sometimes about WoW stuff, but mostly not about WoW stuff. But you can still join if you just, enjoy whatever the fuck I say. But there were some responses on that channel that, at least one, that I wanted to address. And this was, people were complaining. And the reason I say people is this guy made the comment and then his comment got liked by quite a few people. People were complaining that World of Warcraft is very poorly optimized. And that's a problem with the engine. How many of you would agree with that statement? World of Warcraft runs like shit given the graphics, and that is a problem. Like, it should run a hell of a lot better given what it looks like, especially on more high-end systems. Holy, that is not true at all. It all depends on what you view as optimized. No. No one's talking about the graphical fidelity of the game. Specifically, the optimization of the game. So let me explain to you guys what I mean. Given World of Warcraft's graphics, and given the settings and the way the settings work in World of Warcraft, if it was perfectly optimized, and I mean perfectly optimized, you would get, on a mid-range system, anywhere from 100 to 150 to maybe even 165 frames per second. And on a system like mine, you would get well over 200 frames per second, if it was perfectly optimized. Right? Because the graphics isn't the best. It's not like it's gonna blow your dick off, right? It's a good game, and the stylization of it, I think, is actually the best. I don't think there's any game that's as well stylized as World of Warcraft. But in terms of just, if we're talking graphic fidelity, it should run a hell of a lot better than what it does. If we're talking pure optimization. Multi-threading causes a lot of CPU bottlenecks. Holy, it doesn't matter. Everything you just said really doesn't matter to this discussion, and I think you're completely misunderstanding the discussion. The point is, on a 1080, or the graphics card that you have, right, which is a 1660, I believe it is, on the 1660, you should be able to do your raid at 10 graphics. Max graphics. Easy. Shouldn't be a problem. And the reason for it is the graphics of World of Warcraft isn't really that challenging. It just isn't. Take Cyberpunk, for example. I can run at max graphics with my PC into the busiest street in Cyberpunk, and I still get 144 frames per second. And Cyberpunk's graphics is far better than that of World of Warcraft. Now, why is it that I can't get that in World of Warcraft? So if I run into WoW City, for example, into the main city of Dragonflight, it drops to like 90 frames per second on my PC, which is a pretty big fucking PC. Why does it drop to 90? That's the conversation here, right? When it should, by all the evidence at least, it should be well over 200. I should not even notice frame drops in WoW, right? Complex game in terms of calculations, though. So maybe I wouldn't say that it's the most complex game in terms of calculations. In what way? Take a Jared, how you doing, bro? No. So the comment came from a guy that basically said World of Warcraft is a shitty game. The engine is shitty because the game doesn't use your GPU at all. Well, it's not entirely true. He did say at all, but he's not being entirely truthful. The game does use your GPU a little bit, but nowhere near as much as it should. And this is the problem in WoW. The reason in World of Warcraft you're not getting 200, 300 frames per second in the game is because World of Warcraft, from an optimization standpoint, doesn't really utilize GPUs very well. Your GPU in World of Warcraft will almost never be pushed to the maximum that it can give you, and most of its performance cores will be completely unutilized because WoW isn't operated or optimized for that. The other problem with World of Warcraft is cores. World of Warcraft as a game uses very few of your game cores, of your CPU cores. Now, that is not a failure of the engine, and that's the only reason I'm bringing this up, because, like I said, this was a comment, and I thought it was worth at least pointing out. It's not a failure, it's a feature. It's not a bug, it's supposed to be there. So I had this opportunity, this was a few years ago, to speak to one of the WoW devs, and I asked them, when can we expect actual engine optimizations in terms of full utilization of graphics? Because it pisses me off when I look at my graphics card playing World of Warcraft and it's hovering at 45 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's not being used, basically. It should at least go to like 60 degrees Celsius, because then at least I know it's doing something. And if it goes to like 77 degrees Celsius, I know right now it's purring like a little kitten. But if it's running at 45 degrees Celsius, playing WoW, that means it's basically idling. It's basically just doing nothing. And he basically said straight up, because more than 50% of the WoW player base plays on laptops. And specifically laptops that do not really have graphics cards. And even if they have graphics cards, it's either onboard graphics cards or it's very poor graphics cards. Not anywhere near good enough to really run video games. And so basically from day one, World of Warcraft has always been optimized to utilize the CPU and give the CPU as much as it can give, right? And basically the CPU does most of the work, because if they were to optimize the engine to use the GPU, they would instantly lose a massive chunk of players that can suddenly no longer play the game. because they don't have the GPU to actually be utilized. Of course, games like Cyberpunk couldn't give two shits. If you don't have a graphics card that can play the game, you don't play the game. It's as simple as that, right? Yeah, I think it's a perfect decision. The problem is that the reason I brought this up is it pissed me off. I read the comment literally just before we went live. It wasn't even supposed to be on the list of stuff to discuss. But before we went live, I was going through comments and I saw this comment on that video and I got so pissed off I added it to the list just so that I could talk about this, because I think it's important that people understand the reason the graphics of World of Warcraft looks the way that it looks is a choice. Blizzard wants the game to look that way. It's not because the engine can't handle it. The reason your 3080 Ryzen 9 PC doesn't get 400 frames per second in World of Warcraft is, again, a choice from Blizzard. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's what Blizzard wanted because it made sure that most people can play the game. And I used to play on Wood PC. Kimmy, yeah, I mean, it is an old game. But I know, because I've known people that play on like 10-year-old laptops, and while yes, their experience isn't great, the fact that WoW still runs on that 10-year-old laptop really shows, like, that's good. That is fucking good, right? Most new games today will not run on a laptop from even 5 years ago. It will just not boot up, or it will constantly crash. The fact that you can play World of Warcraft on a 10-year-old laptop tells you actually how fucking well it is optimized, right, for their target audience. Now, that does mean that those of us that like spending money on our PCs have a bit of a disadvantage. But then again, you know, if you really want graphical fidelity, go play something else, right? John, yeah, the problem is Blizzard doesn't really do this for any of their other games, right? So Diablo 4 is obviously optimized for GPUs, and I can tell in playing it that my GPU is doing a lot of work. But yeah, obviously they don't really care, not in the same way at least. On console, I play WoW on a Dell Inspiron that's 5 years old. It puts off a lot of heat, but it runs really smoothly. And that's what Blizzard wants, right? That's why Blizzard made it the way that they did, is so that you can still play the game. Because if they did what I would want, right? So if I had a short list and I could ask Blizzard for anything, I would say, please, for the love of fuck, make WoW use my graphics card. I have a 3080 that barely gets touched in World of Warcraft. I have a Ryzen 7 5900, excuse me, X that barely gets pushed past 50% of what it can do in World of Warcraft. Could you please optimize it to do that? I would be happy as shit, right? I would get all the frames in the world. The problem is I'd probably be one of the few people in WoW. Everyone else can't play because their laptops keep crashing. And then I would have to ask Blizzard, well, could you actually undo that change? Because I have no one to play with. Because no one else can play. So it is almost always better to just go, you know, I think Blizzard is doing the right thing here. That's basically the point I wanted to make there. Does that make sense? Why not keep what is happening from CPU like it is and enhance it with extra with GPU? Maybe you could do that, but it becomes pretty difficult because difficulty settings in World of Warcraft in games doesn't really work that way, because it is an engine side optimization that you're making, right? And if you optimize the engine to run off of GPUs, it's not like you can just have a slider that goes up and down, and the one slider doesn't have the GPU and the other slider does have the GPU. Because you've made an engine change, the engine is now physically communicating with all of your components equally. So if you wanted to do that, you would have to have two instances almost of the engine running at every given point in time, and people would have to download the correct version of the WoW engine so that they could actually play the game at whatever difficulty went. That's just a lot of work. And now I do have to say, this is not my area of expertise. This is just me chatting to people and sometimes watching videos about this shit. So I could be wrong on all the nitty-gritty stuff, but that sort of broadly, that was my understanding from the conversation. I think the game is visually in a great place. The gameplay is what is lacking, and the Plunderstorm really displays it because they finally took a risk. Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the visual effects of World of Warcraft. I think anyone that complains about World of Warcraft visually just doesn't understand it, right? People want to imagine, people watch those videos of World of Warcraft in Unreal Engine 5 and they go, oh, imagine if we could play that. And I look at that and I go, the game has no soul. The very thing that makes WoW WoW isn't WoW in Unreal Engine 5. Yes, it looks gorgeous. It looks beautiful. And it is stunning. And if you wanted to make a movie in Unreal Engine 5 with that graphics, I would absolutely watch it. And it would be awesome. But if I want to play WoW, if I want to have the feeling of being an Azeroth, of being my Warlock and, you know, going to the different zones and running into Orgrimmar, the graphics is that. It's the spirit. It's the soul of WoW. And it is only achieved through its graphics. If you change the graphics, you change the soul. You change the way I perceive the game. So yeah, I have no problem with WoW's graphics from like what it actually looks like. From that perspective, no problems. Style game in the Warcraft universe that looks like those Unreal Engine videos. Yeah, but then I would want a single player game. If Blizzard does do that, I would want a single player game. Kimmy, I'm right there with you. All right. Now, I promised you guys lore, and I will not disappoint you. I have a question for all of you in chat. Is Azshara good or evil? Is Azshara friend or foe? And specifically, when do you think we'll see Azshara again? Thank you, Holly. I really appreciate that. Next question. Yes. Foe Midnight. Okay. She's in for her own goals. I don't think she's either. I think she has her own motives and is willing to work for us or against us. She might be a friend indeed, but I can't see how. Just a feeling. She's only on her side, not for the good or bad. All right. So Azshara, in my opinion, has been one of the most misunderstood characters in World of Warcraft pretty much since her inception. Because since her inception, Azshara has pretty much always been painted as bad. Right? What is the first things most of us know about Azshara? She got completely and utterly obsessed with her own beauty and her own power. So much so that she completely isolated herself and her priests or her mages inside the palace, and they did all manner of experiments on the Well of Eternity in order to get more powerful. We know that Azshara was and still is the most powerful mage on Azeroth, but that her power was her thirst for power was insatiable. So much so that when Sargeras appeared to her to offer her more power, she absolutely jumped at the opportunity to do so. And thanks to cinematics that we've gotten, we also now know that when their experiments failed, when they tried to summon Sargeras through and it all went wrong, Sargeras, or Azshara, once again, feels no remorse for the fact that she had just doomed her people to death. She wants power. Does she completely not care about her people? No, I think she does. That's why she makes the deal. She does want her people safe, but most importantly, most importantly, she wants to get powerful. By the way, I quickly want to show some of you guys this in case you didn't know this, in case you didn't know how this is supposed to work. If you look at YouTube chat over here, there's a drop-down box, okay? The drop-down box, when you load into World of Warcraft, when you load into YouTube, it is always on top chat. This is a very poor chat to be in. If you want to see everyone's messages, including sometimes your own, hit live chat. Live chat will show you everyone's chats. Okay, so if you want to see what everyone is typing and you don't want to be completely lost, hit live chat. Otherwise, you will be completely lost. Don't ask me why YouTube does that. I still don't really have an answer to it, but here we are. Azshara cares about power. The problem that we have with Azshara is that we've never been able to figure out why she wants that power. Is Azshara just after power for power's sake? That would make no sense considering her personality, considering how she is, how smart she is. Power for power's sake is fairly stupid if you don't have a goal in mind for that power. We know that Azshara has a deep interest in being worshipped as a queen, in being served as a queen, in being the queen of Azeroth. We know that, right? That's a super important thing for her. And that is something that she absolutely does strive for. In the question, is Azshara friend or foe? I think many of you answered very correctly insofar as yes. Right? Because I think it is all going to depend on our attitude towards her. I personally predict that we will see Azshara in Midnight. We'll probably get a lot of breadcrumbs on our way to Midnight. I think even in the War Within, there'll be a lot of breadcrumbs, probably a lot more Naga, probably a lot more Naga-involved quests. But fundamentally, I think Azshara will only show up in Midnight. We know that Azshara is currently off looking for a place called the Place of Ultimate Power. That's the last thing she said to Sylvanas, or at least to the player, after her conversation with Sylvanas. We don't know where the throne of absolute power lies or what it even is. We know that she is beyond the Umbral Veil. That again comes from in-game books in World of Warcraft. And that she is now in a land that is previously most likely untouched. Because what else could be beyond the Umbral Veil? We don't even know exactly what the Umbral Veil is. I would be... how do I put this? I would not be surprised if Midnight comes with a new world. The new world that has been hinted at not only in Azshara's in-game books or the Naga's in-game books, but we also have the in-game books from the Green Dragons. There's that Green Dragon, can't remember her name now, that wanted to fly fast, like really go fast. And one day she just left, right? And sailed far away, or flew far away, and then never returned. And everyone thought that she was dead already, but some of the Green Dragons are having dreams of her somewhere and actually having a brood, so actually having children somewhere. We don't exactly know where. Now, it's interesting in this to remember that the earliest years of Azeroth is completely unknown to pretty much all of us, because the Titans have a very solid control over what information we got and what information was completely kept from us. So there's actually something pretty big that I still don't know the validity of this, but when we look at the founding documents that we have and all the information about the start of our world as it's known, we go back and we find Kalimdor. the land of eternal stars. But there's something very interesting about Kalimdor and the land of eternal stars, and I believe this came from Deathwing's in-game book, where it speaks about the sea giants and how the sea giants was used by the Titans to lift dirt and earth from the bottom of the ocean in order to shape the continents. This suggests that the whole land of eternal stars, or at least most of the land of eternal stars, is completely fabricated. In other words, everything we know about the early days of World of Warcraft is wrong. Because according to what the Titans told us, the Titans arrived, the land of eternal stars, Kalimdor, already existed, and the old gods were planted inside the land of eternal stars. But then we have the sea giants lifting dirt from the seafloor and making new continents alongside the Titans. Now you have to start asking yourself which new continents were actually built and devised here, right? My mind, there is an entire world outside of Kalimdor, the land of eternal stars. There are entire continents and planet and islands outside of the land of eternal stars. But these lands, these worlds, were completely chaotic. So chaotic, in fact, that the Titans found it nigh impossible to create life, to bring order to these areas that we already know must exist, because there's the in-game book from Odin, where Odin talks about how the keepers that turned against the will of the Titans escaped to this land, and no one has been able to get them back. Every expedition they've sent never returned, right? So we know that there is at least one land out there. I'm trying to remember the name of this land now. I made videos on it. It's an A something. Can any of you remember what it's called? In the in-game book, they give it a name. What is it called? Avaloran. Thank you. Yes, that's the word. Avaloran. So we know that Avaloran at least exists. I think when the Titans arrived, Avaloran and these places did exist, but they were way too chaotic for the Titans to do anything on these places. And so the Titans went for the one spot that they could control. This one spot had some old gods in it. That was somewhat problematic, but they could imprison these old gods. And they could use the sea giants to build entire continents around these old gods that would serve as their prisons, right? And then there they could bring order to this place. And I imagine that Azshara, the throne of power, the throne of ultimate power that Azshara is talking about, has something to do with Azeroth specifically. Because I believe that Azeroth's true power, the true unbridled, unkept power of Azeroth, isn't on Kalimdor, the land of eternal stars, but is outside, on the other side of the Umbral Veil, wherever that may be. Now remember, when you try to sail across the dark side of Azeroth, shall we say, no one ever returns. So anyone that's ever tried to go from the Eastern Kingdoms east around to Kalimdor never returns, right? And am I looking at the map correctly? Yeah. If you go east from the Eastern Kingdoms and you try to sail east around to Kalimdor, no one has ever made that journey. Like, that journey has never been successfully made. So this would suggest that the Umbral Veil... Umbral, first and foremost, suggests to me old gods of some kind. But now, I literally just thought of this. What if taking out the final old god brought down the Umbral Veil? What if the Umbral Veil was actually built by the Titans and not just a natural thing? And the Titans powered the Umbral Veil with the essence of the old gods. So the Titans built these prisons of the old gods, and these prisons were literally siphoning power out of the old gods to create this barrier that would ensure that no one could ever leave Kalimdor, the Land of Eternal Stars, but also no one could ever enter from the outside into the Land of Eternal Stars. And this green dragon that we heard about, right? The green dragon that managed to fly away, managed to leave the Umbral Vale before the Titans were finished setting it up. So the Titans were still busy building it before this happened. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, like a containment facility. Pretty much. We're living inside a containment facility. Cone shape, contractile body of a jellyfish or other medusa. Definition of umbral: a portable device used for protection against rain, snow, etc. And consisting of a light canopy. Wait, but that's umbrella. Yeah, it would. I mean, umbral is UMBRAL. Because the definition you just gave me is umbrella. Nowhere does it say in the book that she passed the umbrella. Doom, that's perfectly fine. Umbral effectively reminds me of, I think it has to do with shadow to some extent. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling that I'm not. Although I could still be wrong. But yeah, it's like shadow or shadowy apparition. That's umbral. It's an adjective of or like a shadow or shadowy apparition. So yeah, I personally think I think that's the most viable situation. And I could even go further and say that we may not even meet Azshara in the World Soul Saga. Especially if we consider, if everything I just said is true about Azshara, the Last Titan, it would be a pretty good way for us to do away with the Titans once and for all on Azeroth, or at least their interference on Azeroth, and then starts the hunt for Azshara, starts the hunt for whatever the hell Azshara is up to, right? No, it is a sphere. We know that Azeroth is a sphere. Griffin. I mean, you can literally go in Legion to the spaceship and look outside the window of the spaceship, and you see Azeroth in the distance, and it is absolutely a sphere. And what is... Oh, fuck me. I'm dealing with chat again that's full of conspiracy theorists. Very, very quickly, I'm gonna fucking find comments that goes, yeah, but dude, did you know Anduin is actually Arthas' son? That's gonna happen next, because that's usually how this shit happens. So we are dealing with the dark side of the moon situation. Not necessarily a dark side of the moon. We're just dealing with, there's a side of Azeroth that we have never seen before, because we've never been able to go there. We finally have a name, and it's literally a single word, or two words, but it really only boils down to a single concept, which is the Umbral Vale. This is the only word we have, because all it says is that Azshara is beyond the Umbral Vale, right? And nothing else. So nowhere else on Azeroth has there ever been a mention of an Umbral Vale. Like, if it is a thing, it's not a thing that we've ever encountered. And we've pretty much been almost everywhere. So the Umbral Vale is either something that is on a piece of land or under our lands that we've never encountered before, or it is the thing that keeps us from sailing across to the other side. Now, again, there is a chance that Blizzard could change that lore. I won't put it past them because the lore is pretty old. So the lore that we can't sail across to the other side actually comes from this book. It comes from the Traveler. In the Traveler, it speaks about how no one who has ever tried to sail across the other side has ever come back. But I mean, it is pretty old, so there is a chance that Blizzard could say, well, actually, we no longer like that lore and we're going to change it. But the fact that it is in the in-game book suggests that maybe they won't. Maybe this is going to be their arguments for it. Use a spaceship to traverse the Vale, since ships and wings don't use. Griffin, I would argue probably not. So I would argue that Umbral Vale is of such that if you try to, if you left Azeroth from Kalimdor, the Land of Eternal Stars, and you try to fly out of the stratosphere and towards the other side and land, you'd probably have to go through the Umbral Vale again, because the Umbral Vale sort of forms a dome around the outside of the planet. So you would either die or disintegrate, or something would happen to you. Whatever it is that makes it impossible for ships to return, that would happen to you. That would be my thinking. Thinking of my books, using Umbral Vale, we should think about something like a misty barrier and darkness behind it. So that's sort of my thinking. Now I've had multiple ideas about what the Umbral Vale could be, and one of it is disintegration upon touch. In other words, like a massive force field of some kind. The other is just a dimension through time. So if you do go through the Umbral Vale, you don't end up at the same time as you did when you went into it. So you actually go back to Azeroth before the creation of the Land of Eternal Stars, before the Great Sundering, before any of these things happen. So you're basically dealing with an entire version of Azeroth that is completely untouched by time. It has not progressed in time whatsoever. And that may be why people can't return, because even when they do sail back to the original point, the original point, there's nothing there in the original point. So that could be one way, maybe, of it working. Androgynous tree. Androgynous means affording shade. The connection to shade or shadow. In other words, umbra. Words is less obvious. All right. Griffin, only if the Umbral Vale is still actually up. Because if I'm correct, and the thing that powered the Umbral Vale was the old gods, so the Titans enslaving or basically imprisoning the old gods using their essence to power this veil, and we know that the old gods are untouched by time. So if you wanted to create a time capsule, as it were, to basically protect everything else from the things that's happening inside of it, the old gods would be a pretty good way of doing it. Now that we've killed or freed the final old god, that veil would either be weakening day by day, or maybe even coming down in its entirety. Right? Loic Pantera, how you doing? Hey, Akalon, do you think we will see one day the Pantheon of Chaos? Because even Chaos should have a Pantheon of Chaos. Pantera, I would hope so. I think it could be really cool seeing the Lords of Chaos. There must be one. The question is, where is it? Right? Where is it and who sits on it? But I would like to see that, although I do think for the time being, the less we have to do with massive cosmic forces, the better. I think even after Dragonflight, if you ask the average WoW player, How do you feel about cosmic threats and the like? The average WoW player will be like, yawn. And not again. We've done enough of the cosmic bullshit. Let's just keep things grounded for a bit. Here on Azeroth, just chilling. I think we've already met one of the members of the Pantheon of Chaos. I think actually he was one of many people's favorite characters. Griffin, yeah, I think it's weakened the barrier and if you leave it long enough, it will ultimately take down the barrier entirely. Is it possible the Chaos Gods in WoW can be like the Warhammer 40k ones? Like inside the Veil, they look like these monsters, but if we leave, they are actually the opposite. Evans, I don't think so, because WoW isn't grimdark. So if you look at World of Warcraft's, like the history of storytelling in World of Warcraft, it is different, right? I don't think World of Warcraft would go that direction. Okay, Spibby, think about a character that was introduced into World of Warcraft about a little less than 4 years ago. And he was pretty much the only good character from that entire expansion. Denathrius. Denathrius is a Lord of Chaos. He's not actually an eternal one, quote unquote. He's a Lord of Chaos that saw an opportunity to not be imprisoned. I don't exactly know yet, but my speculation theory is that the Eternal Ones of Death had enough of the constant meddling of the foul in the chaotic realms of the Twisting Nether, invaded the Twisting Nether. We know this because we saw a vision of them stealing battle plans from the Twisting Nether. They, of course, told us that these battle plans were stolen because they always had to be prepared for potential invasions. But what if that was a lie? What if the battle plans were stolen because at one point the Eternal Ones were at war with the Lands of Chaos, the Twisting Nether? And so the Lords of Chaos, the Pantheon of Chaos, was imprisoned. Denathrius escaped because he cut a deal. He made his way to the Shadowlands to serve on the side of the Eternal Ones. This would not be completely unimaginable, because if you look at the Pantheon of Order, they have Aenar. Aenar clearly doesn't fit on that Pantheon. Like, what the fuck is Aenar doing there? She is so clearly a Titan of Life, right? It doesn't make sense that she is on that Pantheon. But when we take into account the fact that the different forces, the different cosmological forces in WoW, do make deals and do strike alliances, that could kind of make sense. The Titans wanted to create absolute order on Azeroth. The problem with that is they kind of need life, or in the Great Beyond, but they do need life in order to create order, because without life, nothing can actually be created. The problem with life, as we've already seen, if you go back to Alternative Draenor, life left alone is incredibly chaotic and almost impossible to control. So, what do? Well, you recruit one of the Lords of Life, one of the Titans of Life, to your side. You lock life up. So you go to the rest of the leaders of life and you be like, hey, we're going to put you guys in prison because you guys are fucking nuts. So, chill out for a bit. We have one. So Aenar can control the creation of life. And because she is part of the Titan Pantheon, she will ensure that, life is sort of running. Sorry, guys. My voice and everything is just starting to act up. As I said at the beginning of the stream, I'm starting to feel ill. But fundamentally, what then happens is, what was I saying? Oh, yes. now you have this pantheon, you have this titan from life that can create life, but since you are order, you can order that. The same is true for the eternal ones. They need chaos, because without chaos, life can't be created. And without life, there can be no death. But the problem is that the realms of the Twisting Nether are so unpredictable that they cause a lot more problems than what you can actually account for. And so it's easier to keep them locked up where they can't cause a lot of problems, but you still need chaos in some small measure. And therefore you strike a deal with one of the Lords of Chaos and say, right, you are going to be the essence of chaos within the universe, but it is going to be controlled by us. Either that or we lock you up. And Denathrius was one of the people that went, oh, well, you know, I guess I'll work for you guys then. It just, to me, that makes sense because Denathrius looks like a Nathrazim. We know that he is the father of the Nathrazim. The Nathrazim themselves are considered to be demons. They're not actually considered to be of the realms of death, despite what the Lord would have you believe. They're most comfortable within the demonic realms. Sargeras himself viewed them as demons, not as anything else. If you look at Denathrius' realm, his realm is also not really about death, right? I don't know. I just have this feeling that he wasn't always an eternal one of the Shadowlands. Yeah, well, we know that the Dreadlords have infiltrated all of the different cosmological forces. I have an old god theory, and I want to know if you agree. I don't think we have killed the old gods, and they're still alive. We just killed a lesser physical incarnation that took eons to create. Based on at least Blizzard developer interviews, the old gods are in fact dead. This was from Denuzer. Now, obviously, Chris Mason can change that if he wants to. And there's even ways to bring them back because the old gods aren't actually tied to time. There is a way to sort of break the time rift and bring the old gods back into our time if Xalatath wanted to try and do that. It would create a lot of problems, but you could do that. I would argue, though, according to Steve Denuzer's interview, the old gods are dead. So, because we've all had those conversations before, what if they're not dead? What if this is just like, we think they're dead? And Steve Denuzer confirmed, no, they're really dead. You did kill them. Now, I think we're about to see something even stronger than old gods come through. Remember, the old gods weren't necessarily the servants or the highest ranking servants of the Void. They were supposed to be scouts of the Void Lords. Because, well, the Void Lords can't get into our realm. And so the only way the Void Lords can see what is happening in our realm is through the eyes of the old gods. But I think Xalatath is going to open a portal for actual Void demons, for like proper Void generals and stuff to come through. So we may actually finally meet some of the proper generals and high lords of the Void, which may actually make the old gods look like child's play. Loic, what if the fifth old god couldn't be caged? And what if that is why the Umbral Veil exists? What if the fifth old god was actually the strongest of them all? In fact, so strong that the Titans simply could not cage him? So don't think that he's imprisoned. Think more, what if he is completely out of control powerful? Underhaven, I spoke to one of Pyromonster's mods because people told me that he wants to talk to me, and I was like, yeah, set it up. I'll be happy to chat to Pyro. I'm always happy to talk to anyone. But as I said in that to his mod as well, I'm a highly problematic individual. So anyone that wants to talk to me needs to understand I I say problematic things, and if you don't like that, you should not talk to me, right? If you want to keep your life drama free, I'm not the person to speak to. I am quite hated within the WoW community, at least by the WoW Twitter folk, the brain dead ones on Twitter. Yeah, they really hate me. Maybe I think so. I mean, I could be wrong because this is literally there's no lore for this, right? It's just based on what I'm seeing. I think that that's what's happening here. Joss, pretty much. I know it's discussed thousands of times, but was the Jailer's master plan the biggest blunder they put on the lore? Yes. Yes. Should definitely do a reaction video to his reaction video of your video. Maybe I will. Yeah, maybe I will. I am interested to hear what Pyro had to say about the video, so maybe we will react to that. Let's just hope I don't actually get sicker. Let's hope I wake up tomorrow and the sickness is gone from me. Because, dude, I do not want to get sick. I feel myself getting sick. Fuck me, man. You're not a hated man. You just get loud. People giving you lots of public flack, and they don't matter. No, I mean, I'm hated in the WoW community on Twitter, right? I don't know. To be fair, I don't really give a fuck about anyone. I have things that I want to say. I have things that I believe, and if I think that people are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, or if I think that Blizzard is doing things they shouldn't be doing, then I'm going to talk about it. And if people want to unfollow because they don't like that, I couldn't give two shits. All I ask is don't let me know. This isn't an airport. You don't need to announce your departure. If you don't like what I'm saying, fuck off. Like, that's it. I don't care. Genuinely couldn't care less. I hate this. People DMing me, bro, I can't stand this anymore. I'm leaving. All right. You weren't invited in the first place. Like, I don't know why you're saying this. This wasn't an invite-only party. You just showed up, and you were welcome to show up, but you're welcome to leave too. And so his react, it was really nice. He agreed to most of what you said, but I won't spoil it. All right, well, we'll react to it then. The thing is, right, so I'm not the kind of person that forces my opinion down anyone's throats. But that doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion, right? I have an opinion, and I tend to stand by my opinion. But that doesn't mean that I'm not open to learning. It doesn't mean that I'm not open to changing my mind about stuff. Where I do absolutely shut the fuck down instantly is if someone demands that I change my mind or demand that I stop doing one thing or another. In that case, you can suck my dick. I couldn't give two shits about that. If you want to have a debate with me, if you want to argue with me, if you think that any of my takes are wrong, specifically on the political front, I'm very happy to have those debates. Those of you that follow me on Twitch will know. We get super political pretty much all the fucking time, despite me not even wanting to sometimes. We do get political, and all I ever ask from people is to be open-minded enough to have a conversation. We don't have to agree on politics. We don't have to agree on life. And I'm happy to listen to your opinion on anything. What I will not listen to is if you think you've already reached the truth, in which case you're too stupid for me to argue with. I can't argue with someone who believes they have received the truth. Because you're human. You're not smart enough to have reached the truth. Did you handle disagreements super well? Epic Thulu, sometimes. Sometimes I do get super sarcastic with disagreements. But I think I do a decent enough job. Ryan, did I say thanks for the $5 donation? I don't think I thanked you for that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. She wishes to rule as queen and rule an empire similar or greater than the Black Empire. Might be why she used N'Zoth, Queen of Stars. Yeah. Hey. I would not put that past her. Yeah, I can see that happening. Just set up a charity boxing match with other streamers and wreck somebody on camera for the kids, of course, and get internet clout that way. Yeah, fuck that. Bro, if I were to do a boxing match, I'd be gassed within like 30 seconds. I did some boxing at the gym on Monday. And yeah, 30 seconds, I was gassed as fuck. I was literally standing there. I tasted blood. I legit tasted blood. I was like, holy shit. I think my lungs are bleeding. Something's very wrong. We invited to no, John. I mean, I got a lot of people accusing me of a few people came to me and said we're just being paid by Blizzard to say good things about Plunderstorm. Now, to that, I want to stress to anyone that may think that is in fact what's happening. I was blacklisted by Blizzard about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more than 2 years ago. Actually, 2.5 years ago or so, I was blacklisted by Blizzard. This was during the Shadowlands debacle, where I became super negative about the handling of Shadowlands. I got removed from the preferred content creator program for Blizzard. I was invited to it. I received this beautiful Shadowlands Collector's Edition from Blizzard free of charge. To basically welcome me to the creator circle. I got a bunch of free beta keys to give away, and then Shadowlands turned out to be shit. I started making videos saying that it's shit and I don't like it. I was then kicked from the Blizzard program, and then I sent an email to Blizzard saying, why have I been removed from the Blizzard program? They never replied. I sent another email asking again, why have I been removed? But they never replied. I accepted it. I was being negative about the game. They have the right to have me there or not. It doesn't really bother me. I then had the opportunity to speak to a Blizzard developer about my position on the creator program, and I was told in no uncertain terms, there is not a developer at the whole of Blizzard that will even speak to you on the record. So I was like, oh, all right, that makes sense. So if Blizzard is paying people to say good things about Plunderstorm, I'm not one of those people. I am blacklisted by that company, and proudly so, I may add. I am actually proud of the fact that I'm blacklisted by the company. Doomed, I agree with you. Booker, how you doing, bro? But yeah, I saw the content creator invitation thing. I think it's a really cool idea. I think a lot of people are gonna love it. So yeah, I think it's fine. Rise is incredible. True. Gregory, how you doing, bro? Because it is PvP without unfair advantages. I think my prediction for Plunderstorm is that even the people that hate it now will ultimately end up loving it. That's my prediction, at least. It doesn't make sense. That's nonsense. If people can't express negative opinions, then no opinions are valid. Well, I'm not going to argue with Blizzard. Look, at the end of the day, being a preferred content creator for Blizzard is up to them, right? They get to decide who gets free shit from them and who doesn't. Me being kicked from that program, I knew when I made the first ever negative video about Shadowlands that I was probably gonna get kicked from the program. All I actually expected was an email telling me that I've been kicked. I had to figure it out myself. I never even got a rejection email saying, listen, you're no longer welcome. So, is what it is. I don't really care. Fundamentally, it's their game. It's their company. They can work with whoever they want. I hold no grudges. Shadowlands was really bad. I think Dragonflight was pretty good. So, ultimately, I will just say what I think. And that's it, right? I will always be honest about my feelings about the game. I won't always tell the truth because I don't know what the truth is necessarily. I can just tell you if I like it or not. right? And I will always be honest about that. Didn't agree with you there. They'll love this once it's smoothed out. It's not for everyone, but remember, this is the version of this without PTR tasting prior. Dude, okay, so that's actually a quick question before we go offline, because my voice is really starting to hurt. But I do want to find out from you guys. How did you guys feel about this no PTR and then the launch? Do you guys think that it actually launched pretty well for no PTR? Do you think Blizzard should try and do more of this no PTR launches? Or do you think it could be super risky if they keep doing it? Okay, why me? See, I loved it. I liked the surprise. I liked the fact that all of us went into it for the first time at the same time. The one thing I hated is the fact that they leave everything off of the PTR and then they still launch NA first. And it's like, motherfucker, bro. Why? You just spoiled it for the rest of us. Like, all of us that are on EU got spoiled for no reason because you decided screw you. Lady Survival, how you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, can I get some hearts in chat for Lady Survival? Good friend of mine. You guys should absolutely check her out. She's also a content creator for World of Warcraft, making videos for specifically new players, but every once in a while dipping her toe into a bit more lore and stuff like that. So absolutely go check her out. Gorgeous and super cool. Hey, sounds like you'll be logging off soon, but just wanted to say hello. I've been enjoying Plunderstorm. It was fun going in with everyone for the first time. I absolutely agree on that. Lady Survival, I think, like I said, the only thing that was sort of like a downside was the fact that I play on EU, so when we found out about it, we still had to wait 24 hours before we could play it. And that wasn't a great feeling, you know? I do think if Blizzard is going to do more of this no PTR stuff, they have to figure out global launches so that everyone gets it at the same time. Because it sucks, you know? We see this feature, really want to play it, but we're not allowed because we have to wait. Or you have to do what a lot of other people did, was get a WoW subscription for NA so you can actually try it out. It's annoying as shit. Only talk about that. Considering the amount of hotfixes in the first 3 days, maybe some closed testing should be done. Jason, so the problem with closed testing, I think based on how it launched, I do imagine a lot of closed testing did take place. If there was no closed testing, the game would have been an absolute shit show. There's no real game-breaking bugs in the feature. Most of it plays super smooth. There's no real graphical hiccups of any kind. Everything works the way that it does. The problem usually is nothing can actually simulate millions of players hitting it at the same time. And then what happens is players start to figure out very degenerate fucking combos, right? Things that you maybe didn't even think about. The players start to figure out, if I do this, this, and this, I one-shot the guy, right? And you didn't know because you weren't necessarily focused on those things. You were more focused on how does everything feel when you're playing it? Does it feel good? Do you feel like you have a chance? So there's no way of really, there's no battle royale that I know of that didn't get massive patches day one almost of it going live, because one gun would be super overpowered if you use it in a specific situation or whatever the case may be, right? So it feels really smooth considering there was no PTR for it, which basically just proves that Blizzard doesn't need those PTRs. Personally, not interested in Plunderstorm at all, but I welcome the devs trying out new things and experimenting with gameplay. I would argue just give it a try. If you haven't already, give it a try. It's super fun. I play solo. If you want to get as fucked, play solo. Be ready to bend over and open wide because it happens a lot in solo play. If you want to win, get a duo partner because, yeah, winning a solo is super hard. But if you don't focus on the win and you just focus on having fun, it's actually pretty cool. Ladies of Survival, then you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But the way I play it, I aim for the hardest, like the most populated area. I land and I instantly start fighting. Like every single game so far, within the first 5 minutes, I have like 3 or 4 kills already, depending on how many people I've come across. But then also I'm usually like either super low health and then I get killed by someone that just shows up, or I get like absolutely Goomba stomped a few minutes later. So I don't make a lot of the late game or even necessarily mid game, but I do like fighting. Are you getting F16 when it comes to PC Echo? Gregory, I will probably, yeah. I mean, I looked forward to the game and then I found out that it's PlayStation only, and I was like, fuck me. So yeah, I'll probably get FF16. Lady Survival, just run around saying I'm a girl. You'll win. You have to start implementing all those skills in WoW, you know? Just run around saying I'm a girl and let the guys let you kill them. That's one way of doing it, I think. Although I see a lot of people getting banned and shit now for saying things. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I wouldn't kill Lady Sylvana, so if I came across you, I'd let you go or let you kill me. I would never turn on Lady Sylvanas. There's no fucking shot. Not even if it is just the character name. Watch others comment on all of it. All right. But ladies and gentlemen, that's it then. Okay. I'm sorry that I have to cut this one short, but like I said, I woke up this morning and I felt ill, and it's been getting progressively worse as the day rolls on. I'm not entirely sure what I have at the minute. But yeah, hopefully I don't get too ill. Hopefully I wake up tomorrow and it's gone. That would be the fucking dream. But I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for coming out to the second episode of Barrens Chat. I hope you enjoyed it, even though I was a bit sick. I really hope you enjoyed it. Lady Survival, thank you so much for coming to say hello as well. As always, ladies and gentlemen, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.